how's it going?
Hey, Tommy.
How are you?
Come and say hello.
Yeah, good, man. How are you doing?
That's
Oh my god, I love that. What is that in the background?
Where are you?
Were you talking about Lee or me?
Hey, man. How are you?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Good. My cat was being horrible and getting into things she shouldn't get into. So I was trying to prove that I wasn't just distracted. I was actually looking at a cat. I was trying to prove to Mark, Connor, and Francis that there's a cat here. Dude, don't, Tommy, listen, don't say anything. There's somebody behind you.
It's my go-to Zoom fun toy. It's like the Bill Murray head. I brought another one. I got my London coffee mug.
Hey, nice work. Okay, that is definitely a level up from those virtual Zoom backgrounds. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun little thing. I got, I don't think there's too much trash in the back of the floor or anything like that. So, Lee, this is the closest I've ever been to being in your apartment. You never let me up.
Sorry, I have a real. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
This is the closest I've ever been to inside your apartment. You never let me up.
Because this is about the apartment. The other side of this is the bed, and you're seeing the main area. This is the main entertaining area now. Welcome to New York City, Greenwich Village living.
Well, hey, guys.
Hey, Tommy. Nice to see you both. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And I was saying to Lee just before you joined, like, thanks for submitting the film. Thanks for sharing it with us. It must have been like a life-changing experience making this film. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the Dwyers. It was the first one of at least my movies that had a character start one way and actually like change on the way out, like the way movies are, like, I guess, supposed to be. So it was really interesting to see like an actual character change, you know.
Like I was like, without trying to sound crude or whatever, it must have been like a bit of a director's dream, right? This not only this, you had this like heart, like touching story, but you had all the footage that Brian,
Yeah, I mean, that was what's great. I mean, like, so I'm friends with Brian. Like, I knew Brian before we started working on this project, and when he had all this footage, it was interesting, and because he wasn't really performing, he was just kind of filming the stuff for himself, and as you interview anyone, I mean, we're all performing kind of right now, like it's just like. But like when you're just by yourself, it's a lot less of that. So it was really a lot of fun, sort of in the moment things. You see in the movie where like him filming his son went from just having fun documenting his son being a little kid to drastically changing.
Yeah. And like, when did the story like become a film? Then when did it? Your friend Brian, when did he start documenting this?
Well, so the first time I ever met Brian, like he was like, so I was working in the Philadelphia area, and he was very popular with his Pizza Brain store, the largest pizza memorabilia, I think, in the world. Because my hair won't go all the way down. Sorry, it's a rough morning. So he was working there, and I wanted to reach out to him about doing something with pizza. And so we met a couple times and talked about pizza, when he let me know that he was kind of on his way out from there, and that his son was kind of going through this thing, and he didn't know what to do. He was at that time. This was after, I think, right after Waldo's cancer was first done. Like, 'cause he got it back for a little bit, and he was like, I have all this footage. I've become a advocate. He was starting to speak out about these things, but he didn't know what he wanted to do. So we're like, let's stay in touch. And we'd see each other, whenever around the city. But he had tried a couple different ways, and different other people working with the documentary. One a little bit more political, and one was kind of like a short film. But, it was one of those situations where, I'm sorry, there's a long-winded answer, but like we sat down one day and we're like, let's try to figure this out. Let's see if there's a story here. And in taking it past a short film and past a political, because our film is not political at all, it was seeing what a family would do to save their son, And I think a lot of times you read these stories in the newspaper or on the internet, and it's just a name. You know, I think what our movie did was really give a story and a face so people can relate to people who are going through this struggle.
Yeah, 100%. They're, you know, such a likable family, and you know, you can't imagine it on something so devastating happened to, you know, such lovely people. But like, what was it like for you guys as filmmakers? Was it a life-changing experience for you? Did you know anything about cannabis before this project?
Well, I've never smoked ever, but Lee, there's a reason we tapped Lee. He's a very he loves the cannabis, right?
I listen. It is certainly something that's been a part of my life, and I'm proud of it. And when Tommy brought the project to me, I looked at it and said, "Yeah," because this is something, you know, people have been talking about with CBD, and then, you know, they started talking about how, you know, now how can THC help with healing and things like that. So I was on board because, you know, yeah, I mean, as somebody who uses it, I don't see it as an illegal, evil reefer madness type of thing. I see it as something that can help people. And, you know, if they're already giving, I mean, for years, if they're giving cancer patients, chemo patients, cannabis with THC, not just CBD, you know, why shouldn't this be brought into the forefront of society? Why shouldn't this be brought to the forefront of the conversation? And using, look, who doesn't love a cute little boy? And it was a true story. It wasn't like we said, oh, we got to find somebody. No, this is the story. There's a little boy, an infant child who has cancer. He's going to use CBD oil in a time when it's not legal. You know, I mean, the conservatives, whoever it is, they almost have to drop their swords a little bit because children are nonpartisan.
Yeah.
And,
You know what I mean?
and something that Lee was saying there too, it's like, we didn't search this out. You know, like me and Lee makes like sort of like pop culture movies. Like Lee produced Back in Time about Back to the Future. You know, we both produced Ghost Heads about Ghostbuster fans. I did the Bill Murray stories. You know, like these are like comedic, sort of, you know, nostalgic look back at things that make us feel happy. And for us to do a story that, you know, there's a lot of hope, you know, and we do get some laughs because the characters are humorous, but it's, you know, it's an interesting tale, you know, and it was something that was unlike what we're used to. So it wasn't anything we were searching. It was just one of those situations where we knew Brian and we felt like this is something worth telling. And, you know, he had all this dad cam footage, this flip cam footage. So to put that together, you know, I mean, it's really kind of the way documentaries are going right now, where it's like we're filming so much of our lives, like the prep work is already done. You know, it's like, you know, you can go back, if something happened to any one of us right now, you could probably have like 4 years of footage on Instagram or Facebook to make a documentary about it, you know?
So the footage you started off with, this kind of like homemade footage, and then you build it up into this. You tell a really nice story through it. Was there any challenges in starting with that footage and then getting kind of the pieces of external footage going out to different people? Were people happy to go on record and talk about it, or was there a little bit of hesitancy there?
Yeah, I mean, everyone was willing to talk about it. Even the Citizens Against Legalization of Marijuana. I mean, Lee talked to him, and you know, I think everyone was very willing to talk. I mean, the thing that was tough was it was a lot of footage, of home footage. I mean, stuff that wasn't shot. Like, I mean, Bill Murray stories, for example. Like, we shot everything to be in the movie. You know, I mean, like, I just see like Brian and Danielle just eating lunch, you know, like, it's like, all right, well, that's not in the movie. Fast forward there, you know, like there's so much stuff. Like, think of like any times you guys would film home videos, you know, it's like birthday parties or Christmas or anything like that. You know, it's like, well, this is not for the story. So it's just combing through that. And Brian was super helpful, where he would like kind of label things and all that stuff. And some of the beginning part was already edited by Pipus and Kenny, who are executive producers as well, they were the ones that were kind of like making it into a short film. So a lot of that stuff was already kind of, the framework was there, but it was able to kind of zoom out from just a story of two people from Philadelphia to like a larger story, interviewing doctors from Harvard, Jefferson, going and talking to all these doctors and political people.
Yeah, and that Tommy, you mentioned that you've never smoked, but I just wondered, like, if your opinion had changed about cannabis as medicine, because, like, in the film, Brian's sister, she goes on this whole journey, right? She was very conservative and very. Tommy, don't worry, it looks great. It looks great.
No, it was freaking out because I was like, there's this one piece right here, but every time I went to get it, it was.
Dude, I didn't have that problem.
Freaking me out, and I couldn't. Jeez, you would think
it's not showing up. We can't see it.
We'll send makeup next time.
I just got out of school for my son, so like I'm just like thinking about the letter C, you know. And sorry, me and Lee were talking about this in the email the other day. Like, we haven't talked about Waldo in a while, you know. Like, it's like, you know, the movie came out earlier this year, and even before then, it was in Tribeca 2019. So it's like, you know, it's just remembering all that sort of stuff. So I apologize. What was the question?
I was just wondering, you said you didn't smoke, or you weren't a cannabis user, but has your opinion changed about cannabis as medicine? Because I noticed in the film, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't smoke, you know, just because I don't like smoking. Like, I don't like smoking my lungs at all. But like, I do see, like, look, dude, once you're talking to a doctor whose job is to research this in Harvard, I think your opinion changes, you know. Like, you know, when I thought of cannabis, you know, I wouldn't even say cannabis. I'd say pot, you know, or like weed, you know, or like some of that stuff. And I think of Cheech and Chong or Half Baked, or my friends that couldn't like get their life together. You know, it's like, these are my opinions of what that was. But then you look at the science behind it and like the right usage. I think my education of cannabis was the people who were misusing it. You know, like, I always use this example where I liked Linkin Park when it first came out, but then the fans ruined it for me, you know? And the same thing could be said about Insane Clown Posse. Like, that first couple albums, great. Then you meet the Juggalos and you're like, forget it. I'm not into this anymore, you know? And I think that was kind of what my idea was. I was looking at the wrong user of cannabis, you know? You know, seeing the scientists and the people who are like trying to figure out all this stuff. I definitely thought of it differently.
Yeah, I guess, you know, without trying to get too political or anything, new president. Do you hope there's going to be like a new dawn for, like, because federally cannabis is still illegal, you know, like Brian and Danielle, they had to move cross country to go and get the medicine that their son needed. Do you hope there's going to be a shift on that, you guys?
There already was. I mean, this election, I mean, what are we up to, 35 states now? Something like that. This election just, you know, had a lot of kind of a green wave. I mean, Portland or Oregon went a little crazy, and they you know, they legalized everything, you know. But I don't know if we're going to have a 50-state revolution like that. But I think that it is, especially after this election, I think we're going to see a lot of people focusing on other bigger topics, and this will be at the state level. I think a lot of legislatures will be able to get it through. I don't think New York is far behind. We hate being beat by Jersey anytime, and they beat us this past election. So, you know, it's I think now our governor, we had it on the on his desk earlier this year, and it went away, or late last year, whatever it was, and it went away. I don't think there'd be any reason to take it off of his desk come the next voting cycle.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be true for a lot of other states like that as well.
I mean, me and Lee's role in this movie were quite different, whereas like I focused on the character, you know, and I didn't really educate myself too much on the laws or all that sort of stuff or the science, besides talking to the doctors or the politicians. So whenever these sort of questions happen, I always just pointed to Lee. But, oh man, I had a train of thought there. But I just think it's interesting that I just keep going back to the scientists and stuff like that. Oh, that was it. You know, like we were in New York with Matt Rise. Matt Rise was the grower of the cannabis that Waldo used, you know? And we were walking around New York at Tribeca for the screening, and there was like those bodegas, and there was, you know, CBD right there. You know, I was like, hey, Matt, would you take any of that CBD? He's like, hell no. You know, and I think there's a reason. I think what's good about some of this law stuff is that you'll be able to eventually get like better quality of some of this product. Because even speaking to Care by Design in California, they were just telling me about like how even if it's out there, you really should really know what you're taking, you know, and kind of like understand where it came from. And because what Calm, Citizens Against Legalization of Marijuana, were saying wasn't exactly wrong. Like, you know, a lot of these things are misleading. Sometimes they're not really what they're said to be. So I think when you have some of the legalization or whatever is happening right now, you know, you can have that sort of protocol to have the correct products. I mean, look, even lettuce was recalled before, you know, like sometimes mistakes happen and all that stuff, but I think that's what's cool about some of the stuff that's happening now.
It was nice to hear that kind of viewpoint in the film as well. I think a lot of the time people like Calm, what they say is ultimately an even bigger reason for legalization, in my opinion anyway, because it cuts out all of the dangers. It ensures the efficacy of products. Like they sit there and they get very angry about it, but at the same time, all I can hear is arguments for regulation of the market to make it safer for people. You know, as adults, we can't make informed decisions about things that we want to put on in our bodies. And if people like Brian have to go and travel to like risk putting stuff in their children's bodies that could contain all this stuff, it's crazy why people would think it's good to keep it illegal.
Yeah, especially when like the alternative is chemotherapy. It's like
Well, what's so interesting is like being like having no agenda. You know, like I got to talk to Calm, but then also Parents for Pot. You know, the Parents for Pot interview unfortunately wasn't in the movie, but like listening to them speak, they're saying the same exact thing, but they wanted different results. Yeah. You know, everyone wanted like, you know, the right procedures to make this thing as like they just like Calm was like, this needs to happen because what people are putting in their body isn't safe. So that's why we shouldn't have pot, you know? But then like Parents for Pot were like, this is unsafe. This is why we should have these things passed so we can have cleaner pot, you know? So it's really interesting. It's just everyone's saying the same thing, but they're just either not listening to each other or just want different, you know, agendas or different results.
Yeah. It's like you say, like people come to it with agendas. We were talking to some filmmakers in Canada, and that, you know, just the amount of the strides they've made in research there, and just in 2 years is insane. It's like, you know, we could help people's lives, little kids, you know, well, anyone who's got an endocannabinoid system could benefit.
Right? Is that crazy? Like they're like, oh, we just found this system, you know, like it's like what? You know, like, and the way our movie ends, it's like kind of that idea of hope where it's like the next couple years or inside of a decade, you know, it's like we're going to see a lot of growth in this technology and research, and it's just intense, you know?
I think your point, Tommy, about the whole, you've got these two different groups and they are fighting each other and look like they're at opposite ends, but really if you extrapolate out, you know, they actually want the same thing, which is less harm, less risk of harm associated with cannabis or whatever it is. But I think that's such an interesting point, because even with a broader view, looking not just at cannabis, but it seems to be a trend that's just happening in the world right now. Like everyone's polarized, everyone's, you know, either left or right, either in or out. And on the surface, it looks like, you know, people are fighting these opposite ends. But I'm sure if you drill down into that, like people are coming from these similar points of view. So it's just interesting to note these kind of similarities in what seems to be playing out at the moment.
Sorry.
Real quick, I just feel like people just aren't listening to each other. You know, they're just so worried about winning the conversation or winning the argument or winning something. They're just not listening, you know, and whereas me, I wasn't playing a game at all. You know, I was just making a movie and I was just, you know, my job is listening. even though I cut Lee off. But like, and so I just think that's all it is. People just, regardless whether it's cannabis or not, like people just don't listen to each other with a lot of things. And, you know, if you do, I think you'll see there's a lot more common ground with a lot of stuff.
I mean, the coronavirus vaccine right now is already being politicized on both sides of the aisle. And you almost have two arguments on both sides. You have like 4 different competing arguments. And ultimately, you know, the disease doesn't care. And I'm looking and saying, stick the needle in my arm when it's ready. You know, I'm one of the people who says, yes, great, we have a vaccine. I'm perfectly comfortable in my apartment. Let the people who really need it get it first. And then also, I also would want to give a new drug some time to see side effects, things like that. So I'm not going to be the first one online anyway, but there are other people, and there are other people who'd argue against me and saying I'm crazy for that. But ultimately, you know, we're all going to be getting the same thing. But really, getting back to Calm, when I got on the phone with that guy, I expected to just kind of, you know, as he was talking, me almost go, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. Whatever. We just want to put this guy is passionate, certainly, but he's not crazy. And I found myself agreeing with him more than 50% of the time because, as Thomas said, regulation is important when it comes to something you're putting in your body. There's a reason we have the FDA here. You know, I mean, so when I get any sort of, I'm not really into edibles, but if I've ever had any, they destroy me. They destroy, and it's like, oh, but I got the light one. It doesn't matter because ultimately nobody knows anything about this stuff unless it's really tested. And somebody printing out a little sticker and putting it on a bag of weed or a bag of, you know, homemade brownies or whatever that they're selling doesn't make it legitimate. So we need somebody coming in here and saying and testing it, and just like any other thing that we put in our bodies, it's got to be regulated but legal at the same time. Take it off a Schedule 1 narcotics list here, make it legal, make it prescribable, tax it, whatever you want. But people are going to do this. You've lost the battle, government. You've got to let us do this here because it's helping a lot of people. That's my soapbox.
No, we totally agree. It's about time, right? It's like, you know, your film, you know, portrays it perfectly. Like, why are we making these people go through, change their whole life, like uproot and, you know, move across the country? Like it's clear when you see, you know, Waldo on camera, like why, like they have to break the law. There is no other choice. Like, you know, I don't have any kids, but I can totally see why they do it.
I mean, like also like in, you know, when it passed in Pennsylvania in 2016, we tried to interview some of the political people who voted against it, and none of them would go on camera because they all changed their opinion, you know, like, so it was just very interesting with that sort of stuff. And even like, you know, like we really wanted to show both sides to everything, you know, and when we spoke to the Republican, you know, candidate who was on the passing, like who was on the bill for passing in Pennsylvania, you know, he was a very religious man, or a Republican. Like, these are two things that you would think wouldn't want this sort of thing to pass. But at the end of the day, he was sick and needed cannabis to help him. So it's just like, to me, I always find that stuff to be interesting because everyone's against something until it directly affects them. You know, and like you said, like you don't have kids, so this story doesn't affect you in that way, you know, but like you can see a larger story where like, but other people out there and they need it, you know, whereas a lot of times it doesn't really, doesn't change anyone's minds until it's in their backyard.
Well, that's why, especially all the films that are coming out about cannabis, and especially Waldo's story, is so important because film kind of helps us break down that barrier between talking to each other, where we can like tune in and drop out for however long it is and like hear all these fantastic stories and kind of like open up and encourage to like discussions with each other about what cannabis is, what it can do, and its history.
And the history of it too is very interesting too. But even though it's like some people have conflicting ideas of the origin of it, but it's just like, it's crazy how it became illegal in the first place. You know, like we spoke to some of the politicians, but like we couldn't like verify some of the things he was saying, so we just didn't put it in the movie. But like the stuff he was saying about like, you know, the whole reefer madness of it all and all that stuff, it was like, this is crazy, like why this became a thing, you know?
It was used back then. It was used to demonize, you know, Mexicans, and not much has changed, you know, with that side of the political spectrum. You know, there is a level of racism that comes into the argument about why cannabis is illegal, and was also it's an easy way to lock a lot of black and brown people up. And luckily, a lot of those sentences now are being commuted, and people are going free. I expect more to be done under a Biden administration for that. And I would love to see, you know, by the time it's up for the next presidential election, that we've got 50 states legal, because I just think it'll be a calmer election. I think people will, when weed is less demonized, you know, and it's not the devil's plant. If you have people in the red states smoking, they might not be so angry. You know, who knows?
It was funny. I was recently in Colorado. Not recently, because nothing happens anymore. But you know, I guess in the end of last year, I was in Colorado. I was like, this whole area just smells like pot. Okay, everywhere you went, you're like, oh my god, it just smells like pot everywhere.
That sounds like good to me. I think.
You know, I like the smell of pot, but like it's just very funny. I was like, oh, this area really loves it, you know, because I guess they were the first, right?
Sounds like
hey, look, we're getting holes in the ozone layer. Maybe like around the world, big hot box, and you know, we add this protective layer under the ozone layer of cannabis smoke.
Go green.
Well, no, if the ozone layer is covering it and it's got holes in it, and we're all smoking, then all that smoke will then just kind of go shoot through those holes into space, and you're gonna have stoned aliens and stuff, and that's great, you know. Or some of those guys at the space station go for a spacewalk, they come back even lighter than they thought.
Now it's
Who's going to send the first trip to space?
That's an idea.
Yeah.
That's an idea. So do you guys see, like, it sounds like, you know, there's a lot of stories. That's the thing about I think cannabis in this country, it's always like reduced down to like one or two subjects, usually mental health and schizophrenia and stuff. And that's kind of one of the reasons we set up the festival, is to try and help educate people about, you know, the plant's history and its uses, and, you know, like, yeah, I'd hope responsible use, you know. But yeah, do you think there's more, you know, as a subject matter for you guys as filmmakers? Do you imagine doing more films in this space, or?
About cannabis?
Yeah.
I mean, I think if the right story, I think Tommy and I both choose projects story first, you know, and if it's a good story, or if there's a reason to continue this story, then I don't think we would turn anything down. That, you know, I mean,
I'm ready to make the Waldo and Weed sequel, because that kid is going to be one hell of a musician. I feel like he's just going to, like, his family is always singing, always playing music, and he's already probably got that 10,000 hours already in. And this is just the prequel to like the new Justin Bieber, because like Waldo is just gonna crush it. Like, if you follow Brian on Instagram, or even our Waldo on Weed, like usually we post some of those videos, but like he's always singing, always playing the guitar. They're always writing songs together.
The Bad Boys Band? Is it the Bad Boys Band?
Yeah, the Bad Boys Band. Yeah,
Bad Boys Band.
Yeah,
great name. It's a great name.
But yeah, I mean, as far as like the cannabis, I don't know. I mean, like, I think someone's already making the Cheech and Chong movie. You know, I would love to have done that. I mean, for someone who never smoked, man, I love Cheech and Chong. Like, I just think they're so funny. Like,
Up in Smoke is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Do you think stoner films are going to take off even more?
You know, real quick, can we go off and change the subject for a second? Like, so speaking of that, like, I was trying to think. I just watched Can't Hardly Wait, and I was like really thinking about like American Pie, and like all those like John Hughes sort of hangout movies. Do people make those kind of movies anymore? Like,
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I mean,
more indie comedy.
when you're talking about weed, like, our pot movies, like, do they make them? Like, I would love to watch them, you know, like as long as it's not stupid. Like Half Baked is like great, you know, like no, you know, you take it seriously. You're not like everyone's like, you know, like it's just Cheech and Chong was hilarious.
I think that they're going to do like a lot of those movies, like Old Dogs, you know, where it's like
yeah.
So you might have older cannabis users. Maybe one of them has cancer. And I mean, this is going to turn into a brainstorming script writing session now. But you know, maybe one has cancer, and Tim Allen's smoking weed now, and Chris Rock comes over and is like, "Sorry."
Jim Belushi's got his farm in Oregon, I think.
Right. Right. Or maybe that's the movie. You know, they have somebody starts a farm, but you know, because somebody had cancer, so they grow a thing, and who knows? But as far as other I think it's going to be just more normalized. I think as it goes on, it'll be more normalized. And you know, I think in 10 years, weed is going to be as common as alcohol. I hope, at least.
Yeah, it's slowly filtering into kind of common cultural things, and even like just like Netflix shows. You see people openly consuming cannabis in it like it is alcohol. Like it pops up everywhere.
Well, people are microdosing and then going to the office. So how is this worse than that? You know?
Totally. Guys, like, thanks so much for your time. It's been a real talk to you, and the film speaks for itself.
Thank you for having us. I'm sorry we couldn't be there in person.
Well, next
I love London. I go to London once or twice a year. I love it there.
When all the COVID stuff's over, we'll do a physical event, and we'd love to have you over.
That'd be great.
Last time I was in London, I moseyed my way into Camden and got my picture next to the Amy Winehouse statue.
Oh, nice.
That's where I bought this at the gift shop.
There you go. And a good overpriced mug to boot.
Actually, wait a minute. 1 second. To add to that. Nobody knows about this. This is a London Cannabis Film Festival exclusive. This is my rolling tray. Bought at Highclere Castle. I made the trip. I loved it, and as soon as I saw it, I go, "Oh, that's what everybody in England must be rolling on." So
we're talking about normalizing cannabis and cannabis in film. Like I just have a vision as someone in England, quintessential, you know, going over to their fine china cabinet and taking out a tray and rolling up a nice big doobie.
I think China would be too porous, but you know.
Doobie, that's a funny word. So one episode in What's Happening when the Doobie Brothers called, and he's like, "What doobie you be?" And I thought that was the funniest thing.
Oh, that is smooth.
Awesome, guys. Tommy, Lee, thank you. Yeah,
thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, guys. Mark, Connor, Francis, you guys have been great. Thank you.
See you. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a great fest.
Legends.
Woo!